let's go back to the beginning.
All right.
How this started.
Yep.
And I'm going to start at a philosophical level, Jonas. In my opinion, race and race relations in our country is one of the significant challenges we've always had.
All right.
Certainly a challenge that we have today. And how we deal with it is one of the big challenges we have for the future.
Right.
Certainly imperfect with how we've handled race in the history of this country, going back several hundred years. So if you start with that premise and then you go to this summer, what happened with George Floyd being killed was a spark in many ways that led to a lot of conversation, a lot of interest, a lot of hurt, and a lot of pain. And there were so many ideas coming out of that and other killings that took place. One of the ideas was a patch. And there were several patches being discussed as an idea. Your group, the assistant coaches, had one of those ideas, and it was a patch specific to Black Lives Matter. Those words or those letters. And that was one of the ideas that we discussed. And when I say we, the people involved in this decision, it was the coaches, the athletic directors, and the presidents of the 11 institutions. And we talked about several patches, several ideas, and then the ideas that go behind them, which is probably a whole another conversation, but this is about the patch. And we talked specifically about what should be on that patch, and whether it's equality, whether it's shaking hands, whether it's the words Black Lives Matter. And I'd like you to go a little bit further about how Black Lives Matter got there in a second, but I want to explain the decision first, and that is we debated, should it be the words Black Lives Matter, because in some ways those words have been weaponized. They came out of the pain of Ferguson, and the words had meaning. They still have meaning. Black Lives Matter. It's not the organization. The organization came later. At the very least, the organization's complicated. At the most, it's controversial, and everything in between. But ultimately, we decided that we shouldn't be afraid of using the words. We are not aligning ourselves with the organization. The logo that's going to be on the jerseys is not the organization's logo. It's a Big East specific logo. But in this moment in time, this unique moment in history, that we can't be afraid to say those words, or any words. And that's where we landed ultimately on the patch that's going to be on the uniforms.
So for us, the use of the words Black Lives Matter instead of a generic word like equality, we don't consider our community generic. And a lot of people, if you hadn't noticed, I'm a black American, all right? And we are only speaking to the injustices that are happening to our community. And so our coaches for action, we are using our platform to bring awareness to issues that are affecting our community. Now, we're not downplaying any other community and the injustices that may happen in their communities. We are simply bringing awareness to the injustices that are happening to our community. And we are in no way, shape, form, or fashion, and you just alluded to this a minute ago, affiliating ourselves with Black Lives, Inc. This is not a political organization. This is just a moral statement. And so for me as a black American, I think it's a moral obligation that I have to use my platform to bring awareness to issues that are affecting my community.
Yeah, that's fair. The next thing I'd appreciate you react to and maybe go a little bit longer on was the small group forum that we did, where we brought together some of our alums with our student athletes, with some of our coaches. And what led to that, how this started was the letter that we sent to our season ticket holders and our alumni that kind of framed the issue, tried to position things in the manner that we wanted to. And then the reaction that came back from some of our season ticket holders to that has fallen into three general groups. There's a group that supports what we're doing. There's another group that acknowledges the space and where we are, They're a little frustrated that, why does my basketball have to involve this? And that's fair, but it's also, hey, it's reality.
Yeah.
And then there is a group that struggles with this, and they often are struggling to disconnect the words Black Lives Matter as a human rights issue with the organization.
Yes.
And I will say that many of those people, after a conversation, they better understand where we are, which is then the small group forum that took place in the arena where we brought some of those people together.
So I think that small group forum was powerful, just for the simple fact that it started a conversation. I think what is also lost in America, that people are not willing to listen to one another to understand, okay? They want to listen to respond. And I think one of the things that's really, really lost on our society is empathy, allowing yourself just for one moment to get in somebody else's shoes and understand somebody else's perspective. I think, let me speak to the notion of why some people may question why I don't want my basketball being, taken away from me. You talk about this issue. We do not want to be marginalized as just basketball coaches or basketball players, because we're much more than that. Basketball is what we do, is what we love, but it's not who we are. And to some way minimize or overlook me as a black individual, not understanding what is affecting our community, I think that is kind of offensive to me. If you just want to marginalize Jonas Hayes and all black Americans as just a basketball coach or a basketball player. But overall, I think that the responses I've gotten from that small group forum has been unbelievably great. And even if we don't have 100% agreement to what we're trying to do, just the fact that they were willing to come and listen and sit in a small group and communicate about those things, that is a step in the right direction. That is a step in the right direction.
I think so. I'll tell you, every single conversation I've had, and I've had dozens, it comes down to, at the end of the conversation, literally 95% of the situation we agree on. And of course all lives matter. All lives can't matter until Black lives matter. And, so for this moment in time, especially with this sport, a sport that's 80% Black, more than half the coaches in the Big East are Black, it makes sense for our sports to wear this patch. And I think our other sports are going to be supporting the basketball teams as well by wearing the patch for this year. So what does the future hold around this space? I don't know, but it's important for us to recognize where we are. It's important to us to continue to have the conversations and keep it in front of us because of the challenge it presents, not just for Xavier, but really for the entire country.
Yeah, that's huge. And for me, I want to say this. To work at an institution where its administration understands our point of view, I think that is, for me, very, very sobering in a very, very positive way. And because understanding people of power, they don't look like me. And to have, people of a different race wanting to understand issues that are happening and that is afflicting my community, that is very, very encouraging for me.
Well, thank you, but appreciate your leadership too on this, because you've played a big role and your voice is important, not just with us as a staff or other coaches, but our student athletes, because they look to you and they respect you. But I also think for the larger university, the 1,000 people that work here, the 80,000 alums, the 5,000 students that are here, it's an important conversation for the entire university. And I've said this a few times, that I do sense that there is a bit of tension right now in this moment around race between our Jesuit values and our Catholic identity. And I don't pretend to know how to perfectly navigate that, but we are trying to thread a needle in some ways, because the conversation is too important and we need to get better for the future of the country.
And it's okay not to know what the next step is, as long as we have the energy and the capacity to keep moving forward together in conversation.